Hi, everyone. It is Tyler Ayers, and this is my advocacy proposal project. Something I want to do for this project is focus on inclusive recreation, so specifically increasing opportunities for inclusive recreation for individuals with disabilities as a means for stronger community inclusion, specifically for this demographic. For this project, I hope to partner with Special Olympics Arizona. Special Olympics has been a pioneer in creating recreation and sport opportunities for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And in recent years, they've actually expanded their mission to include a focus on both public health, increasing inclusion in educational settings with their unified schools, and fighting for disability rights globally. Some potential opponents for this project might be people with pre-existing stigmas against people with disabilities. They may have an unconscious bias or just lack of exposure to working with this demographic. Additionally, there are some parents or caregivers that prefer to participate in segregated recreation programs for individuals with disabilities just for fear of um, safety concerns. And some schools with those segregated or self-contained special education classrooms might be hesitant for inclusive programming and community programs that do not feel that they have the appropriate resources to necessarily support an entirely new unified program. Some long-term goals I've thought of for this project, one of the overarching goals might be to increase the self-reported self-determination, confidence, wellness, and sense of belonging among participants with disabilities by 75% from the baseline metrics after 12 months of participation in inclusion programming. In order to achieve this goal, a medium-term length objective might be to increase the number of unified sports teams among community delegations by about 50% over the next 6 months. And in order to make that happen, a short-term goal for the advocacy team might be to strive to strengthen community ties with volunteer organizations, either with local high schoolers, community service organizations like churches, to increase the number of volunteers participating in unified sports programs by 50%, specifically in at least 5 delegations that are in need of unified partners. Some potential targets of change for this project might be working with existing community sport programs to encourage participation in existing adaptive sports programs. So, like community sports, adult sports are getting bigger and bigger, and reaching out to those community programs and partnering them to include them in unified programs. And then also working with large corporations. For example, Starbucks has their disability advocacy network. They might be willing to come volunteer, and at ASU, the Watts College of Public Service is always sending out volunteer opportunities because a lot of those students need volunteer hours in order to complete their degree. So finding those people that are looking for volunteer hours and matching them with community programs that need volunteers for their unified sports program. I would suggest that SOAZ or Special Olympics Arizona has an advocacy plan to make connections with their existing volunteers and community delegations that are not currently offering unified sports programs due to a lack of partners to strengthen community inclusion. So, for an example, I work with the City of Chandler's adaptive program. While we want to do unified sports, unfortunately, we have a lack of access to volunteers willing to be on the sports teams. So we no longer offer that for a majority of our sports. And another option would be to, in order to promote unified sports programming outside of the traditional programming, like I just mentioned, part of that action plan might be to solidify key messaging on the benefits of unified sports. There are some programs that might not have the resources, and there are some programs that just choose not to participate in that kind. But definitely solidifying that key messaging. I would also recommend that they capitalize on their non-traditional sports programs like the Unified Champion Schools to encourage inclusive programming outside of sports. The real goal of this is inclusive communities, and sports is a great method or avenue to do that. However, there are other opportunities. Not everyone wants to play sports, but everyone should work to be inclusive. That is what I'm working on. I would love to hear your guys' feedback on what you guys think, what can be improved. I can't wait to look at what you guys are doing. Thanks so much.